gaveling us in. Hello, everyone. This is the Communication and Policy Committee meeting of the Concord School District. It is September 17th at 5:40 p.m. We just gavelled in, Karen.
Okay.
I am Cara Meeker. I am the chair. With me tonight are committee members Jim Richards, Liz Boucher, and Barb Higgins. From the district with us tonight is Acting Superintendent Tim Herbert and Karen Fisher-Anderson. Tonight on the agenda, we have a few things. I do want to note that number 2 on the agenda after calling the meeting to order is Policy 415 for final read. I don't actually think we need to do that. We're still just, I need to work with Karen to finish the technical updates that we approved in order to have it to the full board on first reading. So we're actually not going to review that tonight. So what is left is items 3 and 4, which are 2 new policies that we will be seeing for the first time tonight. Policy 542.1, unauthorized communication devices, and Policy 262, New Hampshire Parental Bill of Rights. And then we'll probably have a quick conversation at the end about upcoming policies we may want to review. I believe we have a few still sort of sitting on the back burner, like crowdsourcing and things like that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the district. I'd love for a sort of a presentation style on the policies that we're reviewing tonight so that we can get a sense of their reason, their purpose, the law that's driving them, and how we move forward.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Karen.
All right. So if we look at the unauthorized communication devices 542.1, this is the culmination, this document that you have in front of you, the rough draft, is a culmination of the New Hampshire School Board Association go-by, okay, the technical advisory from DOE and what they were looking for, and it also has some of the language from, you had asked Cara, I think in the email to me when I first got back, that I provide HB2 language, so that's here, and I'm sorry that these didn't get into yours. I can make them available because I know y'all like to see where some language came from. And so, and what we did was we took the language that was originally put forward last summer. I believe Terry Wolf was the person who was in charge of it, based on some administrator input, and that had gone out in I think what you had called, a pre-draft. So I took that and looked at the other documents, and then I shopped the policy by Chris Gallo, and the other principals had seen it, but primarily Chris, to be sure, for example, that the paragraphs dealing with offenses, violations, was consistent with what we had put out in our Parent Square announcement, or I call it Parent Square, the notification of the parents and what's in our handbook, and then second of all, to make sure, in case there was anything going on, since school had started. The good news, the really good news, is that the feedback I'm getting is that it's been seamless at the high school. They're really, really pleased. If there was any kind of feedback, it was they are making certain exceptions, but they have to be approved by Chris. Chris is keeping a spreadsheet of them and why. But they have had, unless you're hearing differently, they've been very pleased with the kids' reactions, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, there's a good article in the paper today about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think, that's the good news. So the attempt here in front of you in this first draft was to take all of those components that kind of came in and use what I could, try to stick as closely as I could with the guidance that was provided by New Hampshire and by the DOE, since they're the ones, and you probably know this already, they have asked for every school district to provide copies of their policy once it's completed.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
DOE has asked for all districts to provide copies of their policies once they're written. And so if you go on their website right now, their last technical advisory that came out, there's probably 25 different schools who have done them. And I've read through a lot of them. Most of them meet the bare bones, but some have taken some liberties. But obviously, that's why I was sort of interested in what exactly is the DOE guidance on top of New Hampshire School Board, so that we hit all of our corners going in. So hopefully, does that explain it? on how this
Yeah,
came
so
about.
in terms of the format of the draft, I'm seeing, this is an entirely new policy. This is based on the bell-to-bell law that passed as part of HB2 this last year, right? So this is why we're looking at this policy. This is brand new language, but I'm seeing strikeouts, I'm seeing highlights, I'm seeing italysis.
I see.
Can you just give us a brief explanation of what?
Absolutely,
what
and
we're
I can
looking
do it by each one of the yellow one if you'd like. Anytime, what you have is the New Hampshire School Board policy. Anything that's in yellow is a deviation from their guidance, and then I can tell you from what document I took it.
Okay, so anything that's in yellow.
Correct.
Or anything that's stricken is
Correct.
New Hampshire School Board Association recommendation that you would like to remove.
Correct.
Anything that is highlighted in yellow is something that you would like to deviate from the New
Cor-
Hampshire School Board Association.
Correct. And in
Okay.
your final draft, I think you have a blue one at the very end. I only use one blue, which is a kind of a question about, do you want to even include this? Because we hadn't had any discussions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of to guide me when I'm asking, when I'm going through it, so you know what my train of thought was.
Yep, go ahead.
Just to be clear, what we're looking at is basically the New Hampshire School Board Association's idea of what the policy should be, and then you've made changes to that. There's nothing else that was,
Correct. And
Okay.
those are based on the technical advisory.
I just had heard there was a previous policy
Well, there was something that
Terry
was put
Wolf
together
had
that
put together.
Terry
I just
Wolf.
didn't want to, I wanted to make sure that wasn't this
Right.
policy and then
Right, so that was
changed.
actually me. So I drafted that because
the pre-draft.
we had discussed, we had discussed waiting on developing a policy because the law had passed prior to the school year beginning. We thought it would be fine to allow the administrators to create guidelines and then sort of test those guidelines before we codified anything in policy. But then right before the school year started, we got some feedback from teachers that they were a little nervous about what they were hearing and seeing, particularly around laptop use. And so if we needed a policy in place to provide guidance before the start of school, we just needed something drafted.
Right.
So I went ahead and drafted what I'm calling a pre-draft, which was language that was based on the guidelines that the administrators had constructed, but removed a lot of the detail. So it doesn't include the offenses and consequences. It doesn't include, it's real bare bones, just adherence to the law, and we'll figure out the rest later.
Right.
I mean, I personally am of the mind, and this is for the committee for discussion, that in my opinion, less is more here. I would love to see a policy that is as stripped down as possible to give our schools the flexibility they need to modify consequences as they see fit. Because this is a new thing, I love that everything is going very well. I don't know how long that will last. And also that there's just going to be inevitable feedback that will come. So if we don't necessarily want to revisit this policy again next year, I would suggest keeping it broad. But that's, again, for the committee.
Well, it's
to
always
discuss.
easier to tighten a policy than it is to rework an overworded policy.
Right.
So
Right, right.
Yeah.
sometimes that way less is best. We have a foundational policy that, we should add this because of this, rather than maybe we should take away this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I definitely feel that in this particular instance, it's the folks on the ground that are going to have way more information than we have on what's needed for their school environment. There are going to be instances where the board feels, no, we would like strict adherence because of these things. But in this particular category, I'd really like it to be based on what our teachers and administrators are seeing. So, and we can certainly go through it, and then we can kind of comment on how we're feeling about the policy as it stands. But then I think after that, we could have a brief discussion of the major points, and then if we could have access to the source language so that we can study it between now and the second time we review it.
Yep.
Okay.
That sounds
Okay,
great.
and this policy is titled 542.1. So could you just clear, we have a 542, acceptable internet use,
Right.
students. So this is going to fall, is that how this is? Since
That's
this
how
is a
I-
new
I-
policy,
A
this
new
will
pol-
fall under,
In
It
the
should-
same category.
The category?
Same category, yes.
Right.
What you want, you can number it, you don't have to do the .1 if you don't want to, but that's where it seemed to fall out naturally.
It's just between 541 and 542 and 543.
okay,
Yeah.
Is there a 543?
no. 5, 43, student discipline and due process.
Yeah, so just.
So it has to be
continue.
somewhere between those. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, well, go ahead and let's walk through it.
Okey doke. The school board go by, their purpose is, it starts out, as I said, I went and I looked at it, and then I also went to the technical advisory that was put out by the governor about why she was doing this, and that's where the language comes from about distractions, fostering deeper or student commitment, everything that's in yellow there. And then as you go down, use of personal communication device, e.g., I moved that down because consistent with our other policies, we normally have a definition section. And so that's why I took that definition out of the first purpose line and put it down under definitions to be consistent with kind of what we've done in the past. So that's where that first language, it's right here on the bottom, where she talks about she wants to support student achievement, reduce classroom disruptions, focus on. So again, it was an attempt to sort of mirror back the fact that our intent is consistent. So that's where that came from. And then moving to the definitions section, as you see, New Hampshire School Board doesn't have one, but again, trying to be consistent, we had, and I believe you had two, Cara, in the pre-draft, and I realized that's what it was. Nope, there wasn't there was. You had defined students. I wasn't sure where that came from. I tried to find the source, so I used the definition of student out of the New Hampshire Code of Ethics, Code of Conduct.
Okay.
So just as a source document. And then number 3 that I added there, we do use the term district-owned or district-provided device. We only use it once in the policy, so one of my questions was, do we feel like we need to define it? And the reason I asked that question is because, there are instances where teachers can only allow those type of devices, so I thought it was important to, as I said, define what it is. And so that's where that definition came from, and it was further defined in the New Hampshire school board policy. I just pulled it up under definition. Okay. The restrictions section, they talk about a bell-to-bell. Well, not every one of our schools use bell-to-bell. We don't use bells necessarily. I can tell you, sitting at the high school, I've been waiting for bells, like at the end of the day. Some days it happens, some days it doesn't. So then I started thinking, I'll put the times in. But then I thought, I can't put times in because they're not consistent, school to school. So that's why I went from the start of instructional time, and that's for whenever that occurs in that particular schoolhouse within the district, until dismissal at the end of the academic day. And that's referred to as the school day. Okay, and that includes lunch periods, passing times, study halls, and recesses. Okay, so that's where, to give them further guidance. Then number 2 comes right out of the New Hampshire School Board Association go by, as far as, extracurricular activities, co-curricular field trips, etc. It'll be up to the coaches, instructors, sponsors, so on and so forth, to decide. And then the prohibition under paragraph 2 about no matter what, don't use it to photograph in locker rooms, any place you have an expectation of privacy. So again, consistent with New Hampshire School Board.
I apologize, I'm going to stop you right there. How is this relevant?
Because they're telling the kids, putting them on notice, you absolutely can't use these personal devices to do the following. And we have it happen a lot.
In no event shall personal communication devices or any other device with photographic or recording capabilities be used in locker rooms, bathrooms, or any other location
Right.
where such use could violate. So you're actually expanding this from just the basic bell-to-bell instructions to incorporating prohibition on personal communication devices in
Yeah, I feel like that should be a
geographic
separate-
areas
that should be a
within.
separate
And cameras.
I didn't do it. New Hampshire
Recording
School Board
device. Yeah,
Association
it's
did
New
it.
Hampshire School Board Association, to your point, but to Kara's point, I agree with Cara.
It's
that
a
this
notice,
is-
don't do it. And we do
It's not
have
part of the
that,
RSA.
we do have it happen occasionally where the kids will record each other or they'll take
Well,
pictures.
sure. And if this is a policy that gets to that issue, like if like if we're tackling bell to bell, that's one thing. If New Hampshire School Board Association and the district is recommending that we expand the policy to incorporate prohibited areas of any use regardless of time of day, then it's an expansion of what I thought we were focused on, which is the bell to bell, but I mean, I guess it's recommended, so we can discuss it. It's interesting.
I just think it would make more sense to have personal device policy on its own merit for school-sponsored activities, because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That the whole mindset, what about a field trip, or those sorts of things? Like, I mean, I guess it can just stay here, but you're right, it doesn't match the law.
Can I see HB2, please? It's that piece of paper right there, top left.
Yep.
Thank you.
In terms of keeping it simple,
That we have to submit to the DOE.
oh, so should we keep it in there just for them?
No, I'm saying
I
like,
think we should take.
I think we should minimize it,
Yeah,
to
okay.
Kara's point, as
Yeah.
much as, if this wants to be a separate policy
Yeah.
about where and when you can use other devices,
Because that's a whole different
different.
conversation.
I agree.
Restrictions, item 2, I have concerns with.
And I think to Kara's point earlier, from a building level perspective, it's easier to work within our guidelines if a policy is not so,
Verbose.
and we can't envision or predict every situation that's gonna come up around this.
Right.
And we have to trust in the language around, like, you can't use these personal devices during the day. And yeah, there's other things such as this that would come up, but that's like violation of privacy and things of that nature that I think go deeper than just not using your cell phone during the day of the school hours.
Yeah, it's after the bell.
Right.
So to your point earlier, the feedback you're gonna get from an administrator, from a school teacher is give me the flexibility to do
Yeah.
what-
Especially in that
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's revisit this, because I think I would propose we remove it.
I think it's also in your in our
I think
handbooks.
it's in our handbooks, but
Right.
not
Right.
attached to
So,
this
right,
policy.
you're right.
Right.
Right, so, okay, so we'll look at
Just to
that
be
one.
clear, I'm not saying that I don't think we should not
No,
tell
I-
students that. I think
Right,
this policy
absolutely.
is separate
Yes,
from that
exactly,
issue.
right. Somehow they're getting lumped in together and that delete.
We define this in other areas of the handbook
Yes,
and in other areas, not necessarily in the bell to bell.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really like to stick to the bell to bell.
The word bell to
Like,
bell?
no, just
Just
No.
that.
I think we need to be confronting cell phone and personal device use during the school day and what those restrictions look like.
Gotcha. Okay.
Beyond the bell, like, so before and after, when there are multiple scenarios of field trips, sports, co-curricular,
Wouldn't we fall back on existing
we would just.
acceptable use policy that we
Exactly,
already have?
Exactly.
I don't like number 2. at
Which
all.
one is number 2?
That's what we're
The
talking
one
about.
that says, the one we're talking about, where
Oh,
students
yeah,
participate.
Yeah.
Oh, right, no, it's ridiculous.
I was gonna
It's a
say.
great policy, but it's not part of this. It's like they found it and put it in.
Yeah.
It's an okay policy. This would be, the problem I have, a couple things in this is, one, we allow the coach, instructor, sponsor, or other supervisor to determine rules and consequences, and I'm
Yeah.
not quite into.
Yeah, we
going
can't micromanage
there.
that, right.
Yeah, that's becomes, if I take a video of you triple jumping so that I can show it to you and do that, that's a violation of this policy. Unless the coach has made it
Right, has sanctioned it.
and then the consequence that can be judged by the coach, the consequence is you give me your phone and I smash it, or I just
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
it, or like there's any
Yeah,
full range
yeah,
of
yeah.
consequence. I don't like that. And the other thing is too, is it doesn't, kids are, after school in those things, there's downtime.
Yeah.
They could be taking
Yeah.
pictures of each other. They do it in every sport and every thing. And that goes beyond what I think our goal for a policy is, so.
Okay.
I don't particularly like number 2, so
All right.
I agree with you.
Well, then I think, it sounds like as a committee, we'd like to see a version that has this removed.
Okay.
Because it's coming from the New Hampshire School Board Association. It's not dictated by this specific RSA. If there is a specific law that addresses this, then maybe we need to either find an existing policy or create a new policy for extracurricular
Right.
activities and the use of devices. All right,
Okay,
moving on. Number 3.
okay. Okay, that's where your district-owned, district-provided devices definition came in. That, if you're gonna use that in the class, if you're gonna use that technology in the classroom, use the ones that are issued. Okay, and then going to number 4, it got a little wordy, so I stuck with personal communication devices, and then it was should not be brought to school, but if they are brought to school, so anyway, I played with the wording, not be brought to school. If they are brought, they should be stored with the power turned off, and then we had, or in airplane mode, and I shopped that around, and everybody said no, just off. In a student's assigned locker, which would be the middle school, or backpack or other bag. Handbag was sort of a little sexist as far as girls, so we just went with bag. And then the district won't be responsible for loss, damage, or theft of any personal communication device. I tried to stay consistent with that term, personal communication device, because they put in electronic, so staying consistent there.
And, okay, why is that provision in there? Just curious.
Which one?
The district will not be responsible for loss, damage, or theft of any personal communication
Because
device.
if they
brought
end
to
up turning
school.
their phone into the front office and something happens to it, we don't want to be on the hook to have to pay for it.
You will be.
They'll come after us, but by putting them on notice, depends on if we're liable for it. Did the student bring it? We just, again, it's
Karen, does it say that in HB 2?
No.
but it does say it must go by the New Hampshire School Board Association. They want to put it out for liability purposes.
Well, let's just walk this through, take it step by step. I'm a teacher, I confiscate a phone, and then I drop that phone and break it.
They're not confiscating, I'm sorry. They're telling the kids, you have to take it down to the commons or to the
Well, this
front
is
office.
loss, damage, or theft.
Correct. If it's lost, if for some reason it's in the front office and it gets misplaced, let's say it gets damaged in the front office. They were
Right.
looking at spending money on putting up these little pocket things to store the phones and just decided we don't have the money for that. So they'll be stored in the commons area.
And they have the little lockers for them.
Yeah, but we don't want to have to be replacing cell phones. So if you're going to bring
Well, I
them to
agree with
school,
you.
lose the privilege. Unless we're extremely negligent.
You did, yeah, I was gonna say,
Right.
if you're negligent, you're responsible.
Right.
If I bring my phone and I give it to you and you let it lay out and have 1 million people walk by it and if somebody grabs it, well, you didn't take very good care of that
We've
phone.
had that happen, and we did, in the past, we have compensated the family with a comparable phone.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be
What do-
one where you're gonna get challenged. I mean, you can put that in there, but I don't think it holds.
Right, it's not gonna hold.
Has
Right.
any teeth.
It's more of a preventative tool. A parent can say, look, if you bring it
And you lose it.
and you lose it, you know.
Yeah, if something happens to it, you're gonna have to use your allowance, that kind of thing. So that's where that came from.
And I just have a question about the power turned off.
Yep.
How are we managing knowing if the power's turned off?
Well, it should be stored in a bag, that way I guess it doesn't.
We don't.
Right.
We don't.
Right.
If it makes
Honestly,
noise, the
if it's
power
not-
wasn't turned
If it's
off.
ringing,
Yeah.
that's supposed to be off, but we are not checking.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I didn't know why we needed the language. I mean, I know that's in the New Hampshire School Board.
Yeah.
But the language is not required.
I agree.
And if we can't enforce it.
I would
we're not
rather
going
It should be
to.
silenced. I mean, it can't be,
Well, if it's going off, then I imagine then it's going
That's
to be
trigger the
confiscated.
conversation, like,
Right.
hey, that needs to be off. They'll probably get the warning, like, you need to shut that off and put it back in your bag. And they'll probably get the warning if it was in their bag and it went off, I'm sorry, Mr. Herbert, I forgot to shut it off before I came into school. All right, shut it off now. I don't want to hear it
Right,
again.
they'll be
So
either
you're okay with
embarrassed
the
and never do it
language.
again,
Yeah.
right? Or they've learned their lesson. It's also etiquette in a
Yep.
meeting that you turn your phone off,
Right.
or at a
We
movie
all
theater.
have done
Yeah,
this.
But I can see why you'd put it, because if the power's off, then this doesn't work as a.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
And we can.
But
Oh,
if
I
it is
get
on,
that.
then I can use my watch.
well,
to do
watches are
things.
included though in,
Watches are included.
But we're not looking.
How are we taking people's watch? We're not,
Yeah.
you know,
We're
how
not.
can you tell your watch? Is that a, you know,
With the,
phone-based watch or is that just a digital watch?
That's
That's kinda
we're
hard.
not taking their watches. I'm
No.
gonna be
No.
honest with you.
No, they're
If
not.
we see a kid like this, you're misusing it. You gotta put it in the locker. But we're not. If you walk in with a watch on your wrist, we're not like, is that a smart
Right.
watch? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about liability.
Yeah,
You have everybody taking their watches off,
No, you don't.
confiscating
There's an
watches.
element,
Like,
like-
it's just not.
There's an
feasible.
element, the young adults, there's gotta be an element of trust here.
Yep.
Right.
And it's like they know what the expectation is. When they violate the expectation, they know what the follow-up is.
I don't have a problem with the power turned off being in this. I think.
No, because if they wanted to get around it, they would just silence it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But I would leave
Then
power
nobody
turned
knows it's
off
on,
because
it's
that's what you want
silent,
it to
your
be.
watch
You
still
want the
works.
power turned off.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
like
Yeah,
they'd be, you know.
In the technical advisory, one of the things that came up was, and it may speak to why they're putting that notice in the New Hampshire School Association go by about not having phones taking pictures in locker rooms or bathrooms, is because in the technical advisory, the governors highlighted it, I want it powered off, it should be powered off, stored, and not carried by students during the bell-to-bell school day. They didn't even want them on the student person. We talked about that and said, no, as long as they're stored in a bag. But I think the perception is put them on notice. If you have it in your bag, but you take it out and you use it for purposes you shouldn't be, then there'll be consequences.
Well, and can I just say my take on this is there is the law
Yep.
that we will build our policy from, and the governor's office and the Department of Education and the New Hampshire School Board Association is welcome to make suggestions, but it is not law. So we are empowered to draft a policy that fits for our district. Period.
Okay.
And to that means, I don't wanna have to redo this policy every 2 years when someone.
Well, that's why less is best. It's
Yeah.
easier to, if,
Yeah.
if we find a need to add, then we
Yeah.
would, but.
So you're not so like right now, I would be in violation of a policy because I have my phone in my pocket.
Correct. You're supposed to have it stored
Stored
in your
someplace
bag, your
away
knapsack.
from your body.
Yeah, so you're not. Yeah, so
Like
you're not
outside of the-
distracted by it, especially if it's in
It doesn't
some sort of
Okay.
turned off mode, but not completely off.
But
That was
again,
the
that's,
idea.
but that's not, but, and again, that's not
fine.
in
Yeah.
the law.
The whole thing she keeps talking about in here is we don't want to make the teachers the enforcers, and if they have, if the kids have the phones on their bodies, then they may be more distracted and able to get to them and play. That's what she's saying here is.
And that's fine. And if that's what our administrators are asking for,
That's fine.
if that's what our teachers are asking for, then we can drive the policy in that direction.
A lot of boys, male students don't have, they might have a pencil case, but they don't have a
Right.
bag.
Right,
You know,
but they certainly don't have a hand.
They might have a backpack or a sports bag, I
Yeah,
suppose.
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if they lug them around all day, or, yeah.
More often than not, you see students just walking around with their Chromebook, because
Yeah.
a lot of it is.
Right, it's on their Chromebook.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we can revisit that.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
let's
And then-
move on to exceptions.
Exceptions are, and this is one of my formatting questions I'll ask you after we talk about the substance. There's exceptions to the policy that can be granted obviously for medical reasons, the district healthcare coordinator, let's say, for the reasons that are listed there, could be a glucose, a diabetic or insulin, whatever it is. The assistant superintendent for student services is supposed to have the final say for 504 IEPs, or the superintendent's designee, which is all of your principals, assistant principals, they get designated in writing every year. And so that is an attempt, I believe, under the exceptions, just to outline who those people should be for consistency so that we're keeping track and the exceptions aren't swallowing the rules. So that yellow part was added in from the technical advisory, okay? Those exceptions are listed, obviously medical, then you have your educational plans, your IEPs, your 504s, you have multilingual learners, and then there are instances where there was a question about approved personal laptops on a case-by-case basis. So that's in there too.
Well, this says any additional exception on a case-by-case basis by the superintendent.
Right, or
Not-
their designee, that's only, and that refers to, we didn't want to say approved personal devices because we were going to invite a lot of kids, potentially, they go out and purchase Macs or get them for Christmas, they may come in and say, I need this computer in school, and we're trying to limit that. So they're using the ones that are issued by the school, unless they have a real reason to need it. And Chris actually had somebody come in and say, hey, my daughter wants to be able to be on her, this isn't exact, but it had to do with something like music production.
I think graphic design, I can see
Yeah,
where you might need
totally.
a high level, but you'd use it for that class only, and maybe.
Or
right.
during a study hall, but she was having a little bit of trouble with it in the beginning because she said, if it's not related to an academic course that you're taking in class, which it was not in this case, she said it's more of a hobby. I'm not just going to open up the exceptions.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that we did delegate to those particular, people and the designees the authority to make exceptions. And as I said, Chris has a spreadsheet and she keeps pretty good track of them. The ones that have been granted. There aren't a whole bunch of medical, so that's a good news story. But
Okay.
so that's where the exceptions language comes from.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if, on the format piece, if you wanted to break it out into the medical, then IEP 504, and then multilingual, because I saw that was done, I think, on the initial,
In the pre-draft, yeah.
yeah. So,
You mean like bullet points?
up to you guys on that
Is
one.
that what that was meant by that?
No, they weren't bullets, but they were subparagraphs.
Oh, okay.
Just basically like, these are the following exceptions to this restriction. IEPs.
visually easier to-
Medical.
Yeah, okay.
So
Rather
it's
than
just,
paragraph
yeah,
form. It's nice to have a
exactly.
list.
So,
Okay.
I mean, obviously I'm partial to my draft, but this is fine.
So, consequences and violation, which comes up under number 3. Again, it just tells them can't, whether we take that out or not.
Again, what is
Don't
going,
use it.
students are not permitted to use any electronic device to record audio or video media or take pictures of any student or staff member without their permission.
Correct.
This is not relevant.
Okay.
So I'm just asking, what did you just say as far as that?
I'm
It's
just
not-
saying this isn't relevant. This is not, none of this language is in HB2 as it relates to the bell to bell.
I also think so students are not permitted to.
Don't we have a policy for that anyway? Like students can't be.
Yeah, I think that
filming
would be
teachers in
somewhere else
class?
in this.
Can we find out if this exists in a policy elsewhere?
I know from a administrative perspective,
It's in
at our school, it's in our guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in our
And,
handbook, for
and
sure.
we do enforce that. Like
Yeah.
if you came to me and said, Mr. Herbert, Mrs. Boucher is taking a video of me in class and I don't appreciate it, I pull her in, call home, parents on the phone, do you have a problem with this? They bring up the video, they have.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, like, this is,
To a degree.
yeah, I mean, if this is what the policy or guidelines are, and again, if our interest is to expand this policy to bring in several different components of the use of electronic devices, then I guess that's a conversation we should have. But I guess I'm just
That might
surprised.
fall more under an appropriate use.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
it just, it's
Yeah, I don't
surprising
think
that this
it's
stuff
needed
has
here.
made its way into what should just be the school day restriction
And
on use.
let me tell you, I was at the football game,
Mm-hmm.
and there were kids violating this policy right and left when the band was on the field. I'm sure they didn't have all of those students' permission to do that, but there they were with their
Well,
phones.
sure.
too.
If
So
you-
I don't think this needs to be in here
I'm
for this particular
gonna mark
one.
this for deletion with permission.
Do you want me to at least reach out to the New Hampshire School Board to see what their thought process was in including this, or do we not even want to?
You can, but
I don't even
You
care.
can let them know it's extraneous, like you're combining.
Why?
We could
Right,
give them
why are
that
you adding
feedback.
These things,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
we have policies for, we
Yeah.
have used policies for when they
Policies for this.
can use them. This is for when they can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well then, moving on, under that same section, we then designate specific consequences. And I know in the initial pre-draft, there were only a couple of them. When I gave them to Chris, she said, that's inconsistent with what we told the parents. Here's what we're actually doing. And this language comes out of the language that was sent to parents before
Right.
school started. And we follow what's called our progressive discipline policy under Student Code of Conduct. And so that's listed in there. But first offense, obviously, you get a warning, and then they lose the device, and confiscation of the device. Make sure I'm looking at the right one.
So this is
A.
not
A,
school
I'm
board
looking where-
association
Right, this is from
language.
school
This
guidelines.
is added
Sorry.
school guidelines, okay.
Okay, teacher will address the offense with student and ask the student to store the device in their locker, backpack, or bag. That's first offense. Second offense, they will, the administrator will log the incident, call home, the student has to put their device, and the student will then pick their device up at the end of the day. At that point, it goes to the commons.
Yeah, it goes down to the assistant principal's office where they have a locker to put it in.
Yep. The third offense, if they bring their device to school and they, violate this policy, then the parents will have to come in to retrieve the device from the school administration at the end of the day. And then here's the notice part under 3. If you chronically violate the policy, we will use progressive discipline measures, which is consistent with what's in our handbook and our student code of conduct. And it puts them on notice of where they can find that. If they refuse to bring their personal communication device to the office, then they face out-of-school suspension for insubordination. And then there has to be a parent, student, administrator meeting. And, very chronic device violations could result in you can't bring your phone to school, finally. So that's like 5th and 6th violations to try and keep it.
Oh, I was gonna ask, I was like, students who chronically violate this policy, is chronically 4 times? Is it 8 times? Is it once each month? Is it once? I'm just curious, cause I don't know what chronically is pretty much a subjective.
Would have to be at least 4 times, because
Yeah.
we have the first 3.
First 3 are listed, so, chronically could be 4 times, okay,
Yeah.
I just
I
am
mean,
curious.
we could,
I'm not disagreeing
No, I
with
get
it,
what you're
but-
saying,
Wonder,
the
we
number
could-
of times and over what time period is it? It's-
I'm kind of like, is it 4 times? I'm just curious as to how this would be applied, because I don't know the exact definition of chronically.
It would certainly beg for a good conversation between a teacher and a student. Look, the policy says chronically, and so this is the 4th time we're having this conversation. Yes, it's been, 4 weeks, so once a week isn't bad, but it's the 4th time I'm talking to you about it.
So-
How do you think, I think we can't over-define the number,
No,
because
I
it could
can't,
be.
I don't want to, but I'm a little concerned that if it's 4 times, yes. The first 3
Do we
days
need-
of school, I took my phone out 3 different times, and now it's May, and now I'm chronic.
Yeah, I think that wouldn't count as chronic, because you had all that time.
Well, if we're saying less is more, I know this is like what is happening in the school. Does it have to be laid out? Because there's much more detail here than there is in the
Right.
New Hampshire School Board
I have
Association.
a copy of the pre-draft that I can look at real quick. Sure.
This just says consequences for violation of this policy will be pursuant to the blank. Number 1, first offense, warning and confiscation of the device for the remainder of the school day. 2, second and subsequent offenses, the electronic communication device will be confiscated, disciplinary referral will be written, student's parent, guardian must pick up device from principal or superintendent's office.
yeah, we don't do that.
Well, we don't do that, we don't need to include it necessarily, but
Yeah.
do we need to say this much? And then the policy could vary from different schools or however they want to manage it.
It's a notice, it comes down to notice to the kids, and the fact that, we're progressive discipline, do you have to? No, I think it's a good practice, though, and it's consistent with what went out in our advisory ahead of school. So if they try and say, I didn't know that, I wasn't aware, well, we've given notice through parents, we've given notice through, our communications. I know that the first day of school, that first week, all the different classes were brought in and they were told. So,
Does this happen at the middle school too?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the same
Jay
policy.
and I calibrated quite a bit on this.
I mean, in theory, and I hate to say that, right now we love to think that elementary school students don't have phones,
They do.
but they do.
Some do, yeah.
And
Some
so
do.
we need to be considering this policy to be broad enough to be applicable to the high school, middle, and elementary level. And so to Liz's point, I think if we do a less is more sort of phrasing of this, which is essentially that there's gonna be a building, it's gonna vary among the educational levels, and that we're leaving it to the administration of the specific school to come up with their discipline practices, is that sufficient?
yeah.
Because I think they're basically saying that in here, just not with as much detail.
Yeah. A lot of times, though, we will have parents who call in and say, well, where is it stated?
And
Yes,
You were
people
gonna
do.
say
You can say
that I had to
the
come pick up
student
the
handbook.
phone because I work and I can't get there. And, we like to be able to say, well, and again, exceptions are always made, but we do get those questions, so.
No, and I was looking at this and saying it's logged, and I'm like, no, it has to be logged, because if you say this is the 3rd time, they're gonna say, prove it to me.
Right.
Show me where
We
you,
put it in Power School.
there are parents who just say.
But if you're a teacher of one class, I'm a teacher of another, Cara and Barb are different teachers, how can you track all of these
The
first?
log entry and the student.
So are you
information
still,
system.
you're still logging it on the first offense?
Yep.
Okay.
And
It just
Question
says
first-
log.
I was gonna say, is the logging, because that's not listed in the first
No.
offense in the language.
It is, no, I think the first one
No.
is the verbal warning. It's a warning and confiscation. I'd have to go back and verify
So then it
whether
would
they're
be a
logging
second
a warning.
offense
It's
against
probably the
the law.
second by the time, because the administrators have, a lot going on.
But you
so.
could have like 25 first offenses.
That's what I was gonna say.
Before a second
I
offense.
think they don't,
I was
and
gonna say, yeah.
they're trying to be,
Can't track that.
put your phone away. They're trying to be consistent but fair. So I can go back and ask, but I believe that's a verbal warning, which they don't record, but I'll verify.
And how many classes do people have? So they could do it in the hallway, and it could be you say, this is your warning, and then down the other hallway, you're there, and you say, this is your first warning. And now
Or you
that's-
walk into the girls' bathroom and two of them have their phones out.
Right.
Girls, put your phones away.
Actually, I wouldn't do that because
No,
I'd
don't
be in
do
a lot
that.
of other trouble.
But that kind of thing.
There are
Get out
other
of the bathroom,
policies.
Jim.
And in fact, I'm pretty sure they're not recording on that first one because it happened and the administrator said, put the phones away.
I'm not,
So,
I don't necessarily want to make them log each
Yeah,
one
it's a lot.
and have it written down here that.
Right, it's more
When you say
work.
something,
That's what
because
I'm
the teacher's
saying.
not gonna say anything then, because it's like, I'm gonna have to fill out 12 forms for this, and I don't want, so I don't necessarily want it that way, but.
All right, well, how does the committee feel about leaving in this level of detail around discipline? Is everybody okay with leaving it in as is, assuming that it could apply to?
I'd prefer to take it out and put it in the handbooks and then refer people to the handbooks.
and-
Because the handbooks are easier to change than coming back to the policy.
So in the policy,
What
would we simply state first offense, would the policy would guide people to refer to school handbook?
Yeah. It would just,
Or the first offense is a warning, second offense is administrative involvement, third offense is parent involvement.
So-
And
something like that,
then,
involved.
just like that, so now we
Or-
follow what's happening, but at the high school, the middle school, and McAuliffe, it's looks different.
right,
Or do you say consequences for violation of this policy will be as defined in the school handbook?
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, that's
as,
then
not,
as set by school
require-
administrators.
And then require each school handbook to have a consequences section.
we have
what does the
one,
law
it's-
say we have to do?
Nothing.
We had to have,
Then we
an-
can keep it right out of here.
yeah, we had to have an MTSSB interventions and consequence section, which is in our student handbook.
And I think we can just say that. We can say, so for instance, the pre-draft, the superintendent or their designee shall work with school administrators to establish rules appropriate for the elementary, middle, and high school level to administer this policy, including storage and enforcement. So we could just modify that to be specific to enforcement.
Right.
Establish rules appropriate for the elementary, middle, and high school level to administer enforcement of this policy.
Given the fact that the law does not dictate.
Right, consequence.
Consequences, this policy,
And basically, we can then say that the disciplinary procedures will be in the student handbook and will be updated every year. Because we have, like every other policy, we say
Then it
that.
could change, then we could add more if they need more documentation, if we need to add like student services, is like they were referred to addiction services or something, if they can't get off their phone. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we might learn about how to treat.
Indeed,
my 4-year-old is addicted to scrolling.
right? I mean, aren't we all?
There is
Yeah, I
cur-
think that's the easiest way to do this, and then, I agree with Liz, handbooks are
Yeah.
really easy to change, and policies have to come back to this committee and be reread and stuff.
Part of the input, though, from the New Hampshire School Board Association and from the governor was the superintendent for the next few years is going to have to annually review this policy and get input from the stakeholders, to include parents, students, and everybody else, to see how it's going. And so that is one of the things you'll see under the review section, that, if you put it in the handbook, the handbook, we do update the handbook every year, but normally we're really fighting to get the handbook out in the summertime so the parents get it before school starts. I'm not sure if we did it before the end of the year ahead, but that's not going to hit the requirement that's outlined for review.
And who is requiring the review?
The New Hampshire School Board Association. Let me look at numbers 3 and
So,
1 and
not
3.
the law.
189.1.
So if we commit to doing a review every year, like we do in many of our policies, and then we, over the summer, as tends to happen, don't stay on top of our review, but eventually we get to it, we're not in violation of the RSA if we've crossed over from a year to a year and a half. Like, I understand the sentiment.
Yep.
But the idea that we're gonna strictly review this policy on an annual basis, I'm gonna put that in the same bucket as all the other policies we do our best to get to on an annual basis. And we can certainly add that language to this policy, which is that it should be reviewed on an annual basis.
Well, and keeping this part, the, consequences part relatively generic, you could have 2 of 3 school settings be working just fine. And it's so it's not the policy that's not working, it's how it's implemented for middle schoolers, and how do we change that at Runlet?
Good
And we
point,
can leave
Barb.
so.
Yep.
Okay.
It sounds like the school board association is just CYA, like trying to cover everything,
Yeah,
which ultimately covers nothing.
all right.
Well, along those lines, what they didn't cover, which was interesting, is paragraph 4, which is the communication during school hours. And I checked
room
some
5.
of the go-bys, and a lot of the other schools didn't say anything about it either, which I'm kind of surprised because, it gives the kids a heads up. You got to use the school-based communication tools. You can go to the office, the classroom, or other centralized place to call if you for non-emergency needs, to talk to parents. Also, it reminds parents to come through the main office, so they're not trying to connect with their kids. Of course, they still can on those Chromebooks if they want to, can't they? If they use their
suppose if they
email
sent an
address
email,
at
they
school.
could.
And then and then I had put number 3 in there, but Chris asked me to take it out, which talked about if do parents, I had number 3 that said parents may email their students using the student's district-owned or provided device. And she said, please take that out because we don't want them doing that. Don't address it specifically if you don't need to. So that's why you only have 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, that's a suggestion. They go, I can, instead of
Yeah.
texting her 50 times, I'll send her
Probably.
50 2-word emails.
Yeah.
And we'll have an email text thread.
And then
Right.
there's the last one is an emergency communication, which there was some language that was put in there. I gotta look at mine that talks about in the event. Oh, do we want an emergency communication section that I think I gave? It was in one of the documents I sent over there that talks about if we have an emergency.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, these are suggestions from the DOE to include communication during school hours and emergency communication?
Those came
Because they're not in the New
from-
Hampshire School Board Association
Correct,
sample.
they're not.
Okay.
I think
Nobody
that came
did, and
from
I thought
school
that was
guidelines.
strange because
School.
how do
School recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's just kind of how we do it. But, go through the front office, let the kids call home from certain locations if they need to.
Because I could see that being a common student. I want this exception. I need to talk to my mother every day at 11 or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have an emergency
I
exception in
did.
yours?
So
Okay,
it used to,
that's-
so in the pre-draft, as part of the exceptions
Yeah.
section, the last subsection was emergency communication. In the case of an emergency, staff may approve the use of personal communication devices, period. So it's very flexible.
Yeah.
There's a lockdown, people are not comfortable, teachers are like, get after it, get your phones out. The teacher in that moment is empowered to declare an emergency where people can get their phones out. And it's just to, we all know what we're talking about.
I'm
But-
good here. Is it in another, do we have that in another policy?
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be the only way I would say, is if it's redundant,
Mm-hmm.
we don't need it. Otherwise, I think that statement is pretty.
That
pretty
relates
good.
to this policy though.
It
That
does.
relates
I think
to,
that's pretty good.
it's the middle of biology and we're in a lockdown and half the class is freaking out and their parents are gonna be freaked out because it's gonna be publicly known. Right, to me, that's under the umbrella of bell to bell.
Right, it's allowing for that exception.
Yeah.
It's basically telling a teacher or a staff member, if this is an emergency, you're okay. You can,
You're not in
Yeah.
violation of
You're
policy.
not in
vi-
violation
not-
of this
You're not in
policy.
violation,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you
I
put-
think that simple
Should say.
sentence is pretty good.
So keep it under exceptions and don't put it under communication during school hours?
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
because we don't really,
Exception, got it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 are, came right out of the, as we said, minus stakeholders was added, but those came out of the New Hampshire School Board go by. 1 is review it, and 2 is make sure that this is disseminated in the handbooks and in the beginning of the year materials provided to parents. i.e. parent square notices, which is what we did this year.
Okay. Okay.
I have just two comments on
Yes,
this.
please.
Going back to page one, could you flip back there? District-owned and district-provided devices is a digital device provided by the district. So I don't know that you need that.
No.
Yeah,
I think
that's-
that just leave that out. On the other hand, what I might do is we define in definitions a lot of things, but then we go down to restrictions, and that's where we define the school day.
Yes.
Why don't you just define the school day up in definitions and say, student use of personal devices is prohibited during the school day. And then up there say, the school day is, from start and includes lunch periods. And that's just two little things that bother me that I wanted to bring up.
Great. I think we're in agreement. Does anybody have,
Can you say that a little slower and I'll make sure I get it?
so we're gonna remove the definition district-owned because
Yep.
it's self-explanatory.
3.
And then we're going to add the definition of school day to the definitions section.
Okay.
So that we don't have to use the referral language in section 2 under restrictions. So we'll just set it up.
So take it out of, let me see if I can find it. Is there something we're taking out of? 2?
It's number 2 right here, the restrictions.
Rome 2, number 1.
Moving
It's-
that up.
Yeah?
Here.
Oh, I got you.
Get rid of district
Okay, and then
owned.
just get rid of that one, okay. Got it, okay. Okay,
And we are going to remove number 2 regarding extracurricular and co-curricular activities. I think it sounds like we're good with number 3 and 4 under that section.
Are we leaving power turned off? Do we need to be
I
specific
think
with
we
that?
are,
I'm
because
fine
the
with leaving it.
enforcement piece is so broad that
think
we'll
we
just
want
let
it.
administrators decide how they're gonna enforce
because
that.
they're gonna get.
Because to
what
Tim's
about-
point, if a
what
phone
about
goes
field
off,
trips?
a teacher is then empowered to say,
Field
hey,
trips
you
are
need to
good.
turn that off.
Field trips.
So
is
I'm okay
definition
with
of the
leaving
school
it in,
day.
if you guys are.
Co-curricular activities.
Yeah, I'm fine with leaving it. I think it's just
Activities, those aren't
clear.
Yep.
during the school day. And when I read that, I read athletics, I think clubs.
And then we're adding into
Field
it,
trips
under
and
3
things.
exceptions, we're adding
We're adding the
sentence.
emergency communication.
Yeah.
Field trip study policies.
Under Rome 4, we're removing number 1 and number 2. And, well, actually, we're replacing number 2 with a more just general sentence about that the superintendent and administrators will make their own procedures for enforcement. Do we want the chronic violations and the school
think that
suspension
would-
piece to stay in, or you want it out?
That would be, we don't,
Just part of the
we weren't told
enforcement
to
arm.
put it in by
Okay.
the law.
All right, so, good call. All right, so the restrictions section, which is the consequences and violations section, Rome 4, will really now, we're replacing the entire 1, 2, 3, and 4
Will be roughly one sentence.
with a generic, sort of a general sentence around enforcement. Okay, great.
Okay, Cara, are you doing these reformats? Because otherwise I was just gonna ask you to go through them slower. so
Nope,
can-
I got it. I got
Okay.
you.
All right, cool. And I'm sorry I didn't catch
No,
up on
that's
that
okay.
very last part, so, okay. All right, I can play the tape back too, so. So
And
that's it on this particular policy,
Okay.
so.
All right, well, I will get started with the changes, and then I'll pass them off to you, Karen, to finish off, and then we will see this again the next time we have a meeting.
Okey-doke.
Thank you. I am going to return all the things I just stole from you.
Okay, and I'll make sure that Bridget sends out all of those documents to you guys, or puts them in the folder. I asked her to, but they didn't. I don't know what happened. Been
It's
busy.
okay. It's the start of the school year. We've
Yep.
had a few things going on.
I know. All right. So the next one is a parental bill of rights. This is a priority required by law. The good news about this particular, thank you. Yep, particular draft or particular policy is that we already have many of these things in place throughout other policies that I can point to as far as what we do for parents. However, the law does require that we have a policy that so states what those rights are.
Is this new? Is this based
This
on?
is a brand new policy,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
And do we have the RSA for?
It was, let's see, the RSA for this one. Let's see, the rights. It was House Bill 2, it's RSA 189, TAC B. And there, it's just word for word as to, here are the rights. So there wasn't a whole lot of, I did add a purpose section, and again, we can strike it if you guys don't like it, but a definition section, because what is a parent, what is a minor, what is a school, and what is a school personnel. I thought it gave it some context in case people, when they're reading the actual definitions. And then section 2 comes word for word out of the New Hampshire School Board.
Okay.
Except for in the yellow where you see, there, where we had his or her, I made it, gender neutral for there. If they used the number 10 business days, I inserted the, spelled out version of 10 before in the brackets. And then, just little font things, but other than that, it is a copycat of what New Hampshire School Board uses as a AB policy.
And this was enacted in 2025.
It was passed into law on the 11th of July,
Okay.
priority required by law. The last section, of course, in the dissemination, it says we have to have a complete copy of what Section A is there, the enumerated rights, if you will. And we did that. It will be in our annual report. Terry's working on it, but we did put it on the district website, and it's in the handbook. The school handbooks, each one of them has to have it.
Okay. For this particular policy, I know for myself, I'm gonna want to nerd out and read the full RSA and see how it aligns with the New Hampshire School Board Association's version. And I think all of us should have time to absorb all of this
Yeah, that's
before
a
we
long
have
list.
feedback. If this is a case where we have to follow the RSA to the letter of the law, then that's what we'll do. I'm curious to see what the New Hampshire School Board Association has added. So I'm not sure I'm ready to discuss this tonight. Does anybody else want to dive in?
A lot of these things look familiar to me as an educator.
Yeah,
You know,
I feel like there's a lot of
Restraint
redundancy.
exclusion.
Yeah,
FOPA,
and like all the
Yeah.
exclusions out of curriculum.
sex
As a health
ed,
teacher,
all those kinds of
trust me,
stuff.
I had
Yeah, exactly.
to
Report
modify
cards.
things or create new stuff, which I never minded doing, quite honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So it seems like it's plainly stating
What
a
the
lot
law
of
is.
already existing RSAs, because they're
exactly.
citing all the RSAs in it.
Yep.
They do have some federal citations that I would like to check on. But yeah, I mean, it seems a little, I don't want to say redundant, because it seems like it's bringing it all together to provide clarity.
and if it is, and we have other policies that
Right.
double up on this, maybe we create one policy.
Yeah. Okay.
This was House Bill 10, which I do have a copy of if you want it as
Yeah.
to, yeah. And that's for the definition section. I pulled parent, minor, my definitions came from there.
That's
So-
a lot of words in House Bill 10.
Yeah.
There's a lot in here. This is the House bill, and then the Senate bill, I've got some of, but,
Okay.
but it just basically came down to, not only must you have these in your other policies, but you must have a policy clearly outlining what the rights are.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, unless, I mean, I feel bad because I didn't do my studying ahead of time. But with your permission, I'd like to table this until the next time we meet, so I can have a chance to compare the RSA with what's being recommended. And just maybe even do some research on how we can connect these to other policies, or if we feel the need to. 'Cause
The other policies, Cara, are listed under the references in the back.
Right.
So.
So I guess we don't really need internal
cross-reference.
citations, yeah.
So,
Like-
well, some of these, are in addition, are outside of those as well. Like, I'd have to go back and look at the Every Student Succeeds. You won't see that repeated as a, legal reference in the back here. These are ones that are not alluded to in the policy that definitely are covered in the Bill of Rights, though.
Right.
So,
I guess my question, what I'm thinking about is if it's useful, if there's a single statement around restraint and seclusion and discipline policies, and we can point to the detailed policy as laid out by the district, we could add it to
yep.
this. If we think it's if the juice is worth the squeeze, basically.
We did, yeah, it's the 126U. Oh, I see, you want to put the actual policy number in.
Right, like, is
the-
it worth it to have it, if not in the document, as part of the reference section, so that people can see the more detailed
Yeah,
explanation
we normally do
of-
too, that's my bust, I should have put, district policy numbers,
I mean, that's a lot,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we work on the reference section and keep it in the reference section and not necessarily try to incorporate it into the document itself, because that's a laundry list. And then everybody, I would say just maybe review, if we could circulate a copy of the RSA and what's been recommended, and then we can just come back next month and finalize it if it all looks good, if it all checks out. Is that okay with everybody else?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Awesome. All right, thank you for bringing that forward.
Sure.
Before we adjourn, are there any policies you want us to kind of give a heads up on? What's going on with that crowd funding?
We had a meeting, y'all had asked Kathleen to shop it a while ago, and, so during our first principals meeting.
Elementary principals
Yeah.
had a lot of feedback for us, and we think we may need to dive in a
Study
little
group.
bit deeper on how it's being used at different levels, because
Yeah.
there were some emotions to it where one principal was just like, if I don't have this freedom to do some sort of fundraising, I'm gonna have to tell, a teacher, no, I can't buy you construction paper. So that we need some more time, and tomorrow I'm going to meet with 2 of the principals, actually 3 principals. I'll be at their schools talking to them a little bit, getting some more understanding around this.
That would be amazing. Can I add, if you can get data on how much the schools are raising through these channels, then potentially it's something we can address in the budget.
Is it, I
Or
know.
publicly, like
Yeah.
you know.
It's like in August when all the teachers put, here's my classroom, you can
Yeah,
go on and buy
that's
them
what it
stuff.
is.
Amazon
Yeah.
gift list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and I mean, this, sometimes it's a new area rug for the class. Sometimes it's supplies to do projects, and it seems to vary based on what the need in the classroom.
But here's my question. I thought a big piece of this was we can't represent the school district in our crowdfunding. Like, I thought that piece, if I, Barbara Higgins, want to do all this cool stuff for my kids because that's what I want to do as the teacher, why can't I ask people on my social media page, not a school one, not Krista McCall of grade 1, but Barb Higgins, hey, these are things I want to do. If you feel like helping me out, and then I get friends of mine to help me, and I get these things in my classroom and be able to let my kids know that I have some friends that. Is that?
Well, to some degree, and the other thing is, families are coming to the schools like, what can I get? And this has been a way for them not to have to go to the main office, and say, I'm willing to do this, and trying to find somebody. It's a way of people being able to find information.
When I taught at Walker School, we sent a letter to all the parents that if you can,
Yep.
would you on the first day of school bring a box of tissues, and
Yep.
so we'd get in the beginning of the year 30 boxes of tissues, and we wouldn't have them they wouldn't, the school provided them as well, but that's been forever. Schools wouldn't function if you couldn't ask people to
Right.
give you stuff, especially at that age.
I think what some other the feedback was, we've also got boosters, we've got PTAs,
Right.
we've got gift cards coming in. We are getting a little. There was some sensitivity to. We got to be careful not to have our hand out too much.
Yeah, no,
Now, the
yeah.
elementary school was like, listen, we get such a limited budget on supplies, and she was very adamant about this really helps me be able to get some of these things. But then you get into, okay, I got these bobble chairs for my kids because of this Amazon gift card that was given. When I leave the school, I'm taking those chairs with me. And it's like, no, those are, so we have to be careful.
Liz?
Well, to all of this, I would encourage you to go back to the staff and ask, what has the PTO offered or provided, making sure that there's still that connection, because I'm speaking about one elementary school in particular, we have grade level funding. So those teachers in each grade have a designated amount. It's not everything probably they would like to, but we also have difficulty, no matter how much we try to tell staff, we have this money, come use this money, please, we're begging you to use this money. That's one way they're, at the PTO and PTA are fundraising specifically to do things like this, and making sure that those resources are tapped out. And then also to Barb's point, it's one thing to have a letter come home in the beginning of the year saying, my classroom's looking for tissues and, X, Y, and Z. Could you send some in? It's another thing to have an Amazon
Yes.
wish list at the tagline of your email address that's a school designated email address.
See, I wouldn't do it if I would have my own email address.
However you do it, right?
Right, but
You're
still it's the same
advertising the
thing. Right,
school,
right.
even though you're trying to just do it through your own name.
Yeah.
But to try to exhaust the resources that are already out there that, if we're not having, again, speaking about one school, staff using those, we can't increase that budget. Maybe we're like, well, we need to do more fundraising because they need more. We have no idea what's going on in each classroom if there's Amazon wish lists
Right.
going around.
Jim?
Yeah, but the other thing we need to be really careful with is because we have a PTO and we have fundraising and we have donations so that the residents of this wealthy section of town, now their fifth graders, have Raspberry and computer programming and, all kinds of very elaborate support items. And then on the other lesser part of town, they have a package of 100 popsicle sticks to make.
Well, there's very engaged PTOs and PTAs on
Well,
the
but I'm just
other
saying,
all
we need to make
around.
sure that as a district, we're supplying equal educational opportunity to each and every.
And equitable.
Yes.
Right.
And this is to help with equity within the school. And I do agree, this is a shout out to all PTOs and PTAs of working together so we can try to address that.
Is there still a
Because-
citywide PTA?
There is
Well,
not.
It was forever.
Yeah, and
And
I'm
every
just
school
concerned
sent a rep.
about having to go, you go to this family and say, hey, you should be given, we have this wish list and you should be given, $100 worth of supplies to your class, whereas you're going to another section of town where $100 could be a very, very, very significant number.
Oh.
I just want to make sure, in general, that's why we have a budget, and that's why we have budgets out to schools.
Certainly, and they can all work together to provide strategies of how they can brainstorm together to maximize that.
I just think this is the things we need to be aware of as we look
Right.
at this policy.
So obviously, this policy is of interest to us for several reasons. Number one, I think for board awareness, it's super important to know if our teachers feel like they are not being sufficiently funded for whatever reason. We need to be confident in our funding streams so that people know if they are fundraising as an individual or as a representative or agent of the district. And if they are representing the district, the board or administrators should know. There are so many scams now that, a QR code, somebody wants to help buy pencils for somebody's classroom, that QR code could be a virus. There's a lot of scam issues we may need to confront. And so guiding our teachers, not to say like you can't go out and get money for your classroom, but these are the smart ways you need to do it so that you are safe, the district is safe, you're asking for appropriate materials, you're accountable for that activity. I think those are all fair things, while also retaining flexibility.
Right.
And so I think whatever feedback we get from the staff will be very helpful in constructing that, just constructing something thoughtful.
I think we were going to do the working group with each level of schools
Yeah, that makes
represented
sense.
so that they can bring in their individual. So that's not ready for prime time,
Yeah.
but it's on the list.
Yeah.
I do have a whistleblower protection policy draft ready to go. That was as a result of the federal grant review that we went through, and we don't have one, and we should. It's a new
Okay.
policy. It is ready for your inspection to take a look at. New laws that came out, the bullying instruction, it's 539. We call it student violence and prevention. There's some new language that talks about cross-district bullying and cross-state bullying. I don't think so that's out there. The rest of the policy looks good, but we do have to update that one. Transportation of students in emergency situations was passed in July this summer, and we need a policy that forbids we do have it alluded to in policy, I believe it's 437, that talks about employee-student relationships, but they're not supposed to be transporting students except in emergency situations to medical, dental, mental health appointments. We're supposed to have a policy, we do not. There's a whole list of new ones that just came out, and so we could stay busy. Kathleen had asked me before, Great Schools Partnership. I watched the committee meeting you all had. Liz, you hit it when you go, I think it's Great School Partnership.
But yeah, because it's a GSP on the
Yeah,
list.
it
We were like,
did.
what does this
It-
mean?
GP, yeah, GSP. All of the 600s Kathleen wanted to look at. And so, I mean, there's a lot out there that's in the queue. So
Okay.
I kind of, if you all want to tell me which direction, or think about it, which direction you want to head off to, I'll get them line, we'll start.
I mean, I would say, whatever, like the lowest hanging fruit, like what you think you can get a policy draft of in front of us without having to jump through a bunch of hoops would obviously be top of the list, right? So, like crowdfunding's tough. You're going to have a lot of stakeholder meetings and all that sort of stuff. But if there's just like language we need to add to 539 because there's new language in the RSA,
Yep.
boom,
We do need a whistleblower.
And then we do need the
You want
whistleblower.
whistleblower to read in advance for the next time?
Yes, ma'am.
Send it
Because I
for
got
the
it
next
ready to
time.
go. So why don't I share that with
That would be the other
you?
thing,
You know
low,
what? I'll
the
have
easy
the-
ones
You'll have it.
and the ones
You'll
that
have
are
it.
critically needed
Yeah,
to be
and
in
I have-
compliance with,
I have the law.
In your
yeah,
mind, you
the
wished you
law
had it. There you
and
go.
insurance.
We're so
and all
excited.
that.
I mean, the good news is in the absence of a policy, the law
Law acts as.
acts as our policy.
Right.
And so we're okay. If we have a policy that is in violation of the law, that's a different story.
So you will have that one.
We are never
soon.
without things to do.
Oh, no.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah.
There's always.
The fact that there are a lot of pending ones is just a normal situation
Yeah.
of this committee.
Yeah.
Right, and I know everybody's busy and we're trying, and I will do whatever y'all want to do. I did go back and look at my spreadsheet. 2 days it took me to go through every single section of it. We have 9 of them, to look at how far back it has been since many of these policies have even been looked at, and it has been a royal. A lot of it is because there's been such a push on new policies. But I'm not saying this to scare y'all, but do you want to hear what some of the statistics are? Or do you want me to save it for another time?
Oh, no, it's probably.
Go ahead, tell
I
us.
remember a few years back, 1979.
Yeah, like in our student,
1982.
in our student section of 37 policies that exist, 19 of them were before 2019, the last time they looked at. Okay.
Well, that
That's
doesn't
an
shock,
improvement.
that
That's
doesn't
all
shock me
right.
at all. If
That's
you were telling me
nothing.
before 2000.
I remember when we really ramped up this committee.
72.
Oh my God, there were so many.
78.
Yeah.
You go through and you're like,
79.
personnel.
this was written when I was in high school.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
personnel, 22 of 29 were before 2019. So some of them, grants, good news. 2022, or 22, we did those. Fiscals all up to date. We're looking really good there. But some of these, I was just, oh my goodness, if we could just, and you know what the good news is? Some of them are very low, like optional or recommended. They're not priority required by law.
Right.
But I put that out there because if I can help move stuff faster for you somehow, please let me know and I will jump on it.
If you ever, I think, back to Cara's point, if, I'm sure some of those policies are 2 paragraphs,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
put
just
them in
need to be
there.
reviewed, maybe not changed. If we can
Put 'em in
knock
there.
that list down and have a, second
One-
half of this meeting, we're gonna go through these, 8 policies just to recommend that they be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I could see us even changing the format of this a little bit, which is that we carve out up to 3 hours to do reviews, where we are not necessarily hearing presentations on changes of policies, but we are sitting as a committee and looking at that, we're just going policy to policy and saying, how does this look? Does this require change? Okay, it goes in the pile for needs attention. Does it seem like it's still relevant and good? Then it goes in the reviewed pile, and then we can update the references section to say reviewed in 2025. Like, we can.
That's helpful too, and then it's more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and that doesn't,
Yeah,
that's
and-
not hugely time consuming.
Right,
Several of these may require just like 3 or 4 words changed.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
so I think we could, when we're not busy during the year, maybe we could find a date where we could just do that. And then maybe we know that we're gonna be here for some time, so we just carve that out.
Bring it along.
Bring lunch, exactly. Okay. All great things. I look forward to seeing whatever you bring on the next agenda, including changes to 542.1 and 262. We will come back and give our feedback on 262,
Okay.
and then I'll get you changes on 542.1.
I think I hung in there right until the very end.
Well, do you want to make the changes and send it my way, just for
I'll
verification?
reread why don't I watch the tape again? And I took notes. It was just that final paragraph, and I got Tim too. I could go.
Okay.
So I'll do it and send it to you because I know you have things going on. So we'll get it right.
Alright, great, thank you. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
You guys.
You guys, you can figure out which. of the
Made
two
by
said it
Barbara
at that time.
Higgins, seconded by Liz Boucher. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:56.